You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are latest things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you, but doesn't judge you as harshly as the rest of the world. That's why you love us as a family for over 16 years and 2,300 episodes. You've been just improving your life and making it better, and so if the rest of the world wants to judge you, let them have at it, because you're always learning and growing more. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, all those crazy places on the internet. Today we had an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking to her about her insights, her experience, and her podcast, and her story and journey. Today we're joined by Gretchen Schoser, and we're going to be talking about her insights and experience. Welcome to the show, Gretchen. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for coming. We really appreciate you coming on board. Give us a .coms. Where can people find you on the internet?
So you can find me in two places. You can find me on our podcast website, which is goesoninourheads.net, or on my company website, which is shosersolutions.com.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what you do over there.
So for my company, I predominantly focus on two areas. One would be working with customers that have UKG recruiting and onboarding solutions. I can go in and do system reviews, some training, implementations. And then on the wellness side, I work with companies to help them remember that they need to include mental health when they're doing change within their companies.
Mm-hmm. There you go. What is UKG?
So UKG is a HRIS software. It's payroll and other ancillary products. Mm-hmm. And I worked there for 15 years before I took an early retirement and decided to go out on my own.
There you go. Now you're doing it. Now you have a unique story that you tell, and it established your podcast. Give us the lowdown on some of that.
So our podcast started from a really dark place. On Christmas Day, 2022, I attempted suicide. Thank God for a small glimmer of hope. Mm-hmm. And I had remembered, like a couple of months ahead of time, I had read an article about 988. And so I contacted 988. Mm-hmm. 988, the lady on the other end of the line was amazing. I'm alive today because of her, and I'm thankful every day for that, because that little glimmer of hope told me that things were going to get better, and they did like 1,000-fold. Wow. So the day after I called 988, I opened up to social media to let them know what was going on. I am 100% extroverted. Mm-hmm. And nobody knew how depressed I was. Not a single soul.
There you go. Well, a podcast is right for you if you're 100% extroverted. So there you go. Yeah. And so the 988, for those, let's lay a foundation for those who might be unfamiliar with it. It's a suicide and crisis lifeline that people can call. And it's probably important to know if you ever feel like you're depressed or you're having issues. That I believe they can even refer you to mental health professionals so you can get help. But basically, if you're facing mental health struggles, emotional distress, alcohol or drug use concerns, just need someone to talk to, there's counselors that are there. And it's good to see that there's examples of it being used as a lifeline and it working on saving people from depression.
Yeah, 100%. And the nice thing to remember also is it's free and it's anonymous. So if you get like a little freaked out about calling, mm-hmm. Don't worry, they don't know who you are. They don't know your real name unless you want to give it up.
Yeah, That's really important to know because, I think some people, maybe they're having issues. They don't know the depth of their issue or the depth of their impact that it's having on them emotionally. And maybe they just feel like they have that need. And it's great that they can reach out and have those conversations. What was it about the conversation you had with 988 that gave you that hope?
They helped me find my voice. They helped me find my footing because as I was going through all this massive depression, I didn't understand what it was. And I couldn't tell anybody what was going on because I didn't understand it myself. But they helped me find my voice so I could actually go downstairs and talk to my wife and let her know what was going on because she didn't even know how depressed I was.
Wow. And sometimes folks are like that. Sometimes we just think, well, I'm having a bad run or I just don't feel up to par. And sometimes our self-talk can really beat us up inside of our own heads. We've got that kind of monkey brain, as we had one podcast or one book author call it, that sometimes, beats us up a little too much in the head. And that voice can kind of drive us to depression and to ugly thoughts of maybe self-destruction.
And that's exactly what was happening. But like the lady on the other end of the line, she was powerful and compassionate. And I spent like almost 2 hours on the phone with her.
Wow.
Just to get me to a point where I could actually go and talk about it. And, I'm not proud of the fact that, I hid it for so long. But like I said, I didn't know how to talk about it.
How to deal with it. Yeah.
Because, at my age, I was 59 and a half when it happened.
Wow.
We're all taught at that age, like you never talk about your mental health. You shove it down as far as it can go until it has no place else to go.
Yeah. And, it's like, I always reckon it to, putting a dam up to a river when you blockade off your feelings or your thoughts and stuff, the water's going to find a way to go somewhere. It creates a lot of dementia sometimes in not dealing with our issues. The water will go around the dam and find a way. And a lot of times we don't understand. I remember when I went in for anxiety, I was having panic attacks like daily, and when I was very young and starting companies, and I would have these panic attacks, and then one day I just felt like I probably had brain cancer because my brain would always hurt, my chest would hurt, and so I went into the Instacare one day, and the gal said, "You have anxiety," and I'm like, "Yeah," and I also have fear and loathing and depression and like, thanks, really. And I have anxiety. Cool, you've named one of the emotional features of being human. And she was like, no, anxiety is like a depression thing. And so I had no idea. Like, I about ripped her head off because I was, at that level of high anxiety and OCD. And, I'd have someone just tell you, well, you felt something. I'm like, what? And then she, calmed me down and she explained to me, anxiety, depression, different things. And thank God, she got through to me. But yeah, a lot of times, this isn't something you teach us in high school, right? When we're growing up, how to deal with mental health issues.
Yeah, they don't teach us. They didn't teach us anything about emotional intelligence or how to check in on yourself or self-care or self-love or setting boundaries. They don't teach any of that, and that's the sad part. Is that?
I mean, if anything, high school gives us issues.
and those early years too. You're like, why is this not working out the way I thought it would?
So you go through this journey. Do you want to talk about some of the things that was happening to you in life, so that if other people are maybe going through the same thing, they can identify it?
100%. So in the last quarter of 2022 was horrid. It was more horrible than when my mom passed away because a lot of stuff happened in a very short period of time. I was offered an early retirement, and yes, that probably should have been a good thing. But remember, there's ageism in the workforce. So, trying to think about that. During all that, my wife got shingles. If you've ever dealt with anybody that had shingles before, there's absolutely nothing you can do to help them.
Yeah.
Then I hit and killed a deer.
Oh,
Highly do not recommend doing that.
yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And then I got catfished. But thankfully, by the time that happened, I had kind of come to my senses. I ended up not spending any money.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, got the FBI involved. It was
really?
nuts.
Wow.
And then a really good friend of ours passed away unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law passed away 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
You throw in a little bit of holiday depression and a little bit of seasonal depression, and then that December in upstate New York was probably the coldest December I've ever felt in my entire life. It was like minus 22 on Christmas Day, and
Wow.
I was just done. Like, I just wanted to go for a drive. I go out to start my car didn't start. Why?
Oh, no.
Because it was minus 22.
Wow.
So I march back inside, and by this time, I'm just like, I'm so done.
Mhm.
I didn't want to talk to anybody.
Mhm.
So I march upstairs, and I'm like, I want to be done with this. I like, and the continuous like negative self-talk of like, I can't get my stuff together. Like, my life sucks. And I sat on my bed and I was like, I need to figure something out. And that's when I called 988
There you
because I kept thinking about all the people I would leave behind, and I didn't want to do that. And it made me feel really guilty for having those feelings. But at the same time, I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, when I got off the phone with 988, I was able to go down and talk to my wife, and we talked for hours.
Wow.
And I felt like one of those heavy X-ray weighted blankets had gotten lifted off my shoulders.
Wow. You know, I know this feeling. I know this feeling of what it's like to have your brain just whipping at you and punishing you, and you know, it's kind of one of those things that initially, to my understanding, the psychology of this part of our brain, this monkey brain that we have, is to remind us of things like, hey, you fucked that up, don't fuck that up again. You know, it's supposed to be helpful. But and a lot of times, especially with depression and different other things, it can turn into turning you into a mental whipping post where your thoughts just overrun you, just beat you up. Oh, you did this wrong and you did that wrong. And it sounds like you went through quite a few. You know, you were just getting the punching bag worth of hits in a very short timeline. And it was making, it was just overwhelming you. And a lot of people aren't prepared for that. I had gone 27 years when my first dog died. I'd gone 27 years without anyone dying in my life. And I mentioned that, I didn't have any calluses really to people passing away. And so all of a sudden, after 27 years of no one dying, my dog dies instantly from a seizure, in over 30 minutes, and it's over. And without any warning, well, we knew she had seizures, but, we just didn't ever think that it would happen that night, And so, your brain whips at you. And a lot of people, I don't think they understand suicide or depression, but you reach a point where that voice is whipping you so hard internally that you just want it to end. You just want that voice to shut the fuck up and leave you alone. And thankfully, I had a friend turn me on to Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. And that was actually a lifesaver for me. That was my 988 moment. And being able to sit down and find ways to turn off that abusive brain thing that, it's technically supposed to work good for us, but in depression, it just will override us, right?
It does. It's like you'll have like other thoughts in your head, but the depression is still kicking your ass.
Yep.
I found though that like sharing my journey with other people, that really helped me also, because I'm also an empath. And so while I was sucking up everybody else's energy and all the bad crap going on in their life, I was not taking care of myself. And like in the first 2 or 3 sessions with my therapist, I learned about setting boundaries. I'm telling you, lifesaver, life changer. Like now I have no problem saying no.
There you go. And boundaries are really important because otherwise, like you say, if you're empathic, if you care about others, if you're a person of empathy or emotional depth that comes with emotional intelligence, you can really get sucked down people's rabbit holes, and you can. I mean, if you have some, what do they call them? Emotional vampires or drama vampires or people that they just live to drain everyone's emotions for whatever sort of problems they're creating in their life. It can really have a massive impact in your life, correct?
Oh, it did. It had a horrible impact because, like I said, I was taking care of everybody else's emotions, but not my own. But
Mm-hmm.
what I did do is I now have like this imaginary black box, and if it smells like drama, it does not get to come in the box. Okay, like I've already been down that rabbit hole. We are
Yeah.
not going back.
It's really true. I mean, look, I don't. And people have all sorts of issues, and I don't mean to minimize them, but there's an adage that you need to. It's the airline adage that you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on. Whoever's sitting around you in the airplane. And the concept is you can't help people. You can't help other people fill their buckets if your bucket is empty, right? It sounds like a title to a book right there. But a lot of us do that in life. We get caught up just being good people, just trying to help people with their problems. But there's some people, they live for their problems. They live to have them, and they need to do their own 988 calls and get some help. But trying to be everyone's psychologist and savior can just drain you. And a lot of times those people aren't reciprocal. And so you feel drained, right?
They suck every little bit of life out of you that they possibly can. But once I started like putting up that black box, yes, I did lose a few friends because of that.
Sure, yeah.
Because you know what, I'm not going down that rabbit hole again.
Yeah.
I'm just not. If it's not something that's going to serve me personally, I don't really need it in my life. But what was cool is like the day after all the shit went down, I opened up on social media and I had about 200 people reach out to me and say thank you because now they didn't feel so terrified and alone in their own journey.
Yeah.
And so that worked for me. Like I did that for about 6 months. I would rate my days between 1 and 5. I had a whole lot more 1s than I had 5s, but they all propped me up when I couldn't prop myself up.
There you go. And this is the power of sharing your story, of sharing, of talking, of opening them up, of not, a lot of times we're like, I always tell the story about my dog. I'm sure the audience has heard it a million times, but it's pertinent. I remember when my dog passed, the example I gave earlier, I sat drinking half a bottle of vodka that night, trying to drink myself so I wouldn't wake up in the morning. And I was really angry the next morning when I woke up that I was waking up. But I wrote this huge post on Facebook about, just pouring out what it felt like to have losing my dog and just the agony of it all. And I remember it took me half an hour to press the button to send because I'm like, no one wants to hear this. No one cares. This is so selfish. This is me, 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 me. Oh, poor Chris. His dog died. And I just wouldn't push the button to send it. And I put it away at one point, and then I copied and pasted it back. And finally, enough vodka had gone by to where I just didn't give a fuck anymore, and I sent it. And I thought it was the most selfish thing I'd ever written or done in all the selfish things I'd always done on social media. And it was amazing how much it helped other people. It was mind-blowing. I mean, still to this day, people will write me and tell me how that post, years later, it's almost 10 years later now, maybe 7 or 8. Well, 2014. Oh my God, it's 10 years, I think, in September of this year. Or no, it was 10 years in September last year. I'm still living in 2024. Tells you where I'm at in life. And yeah, so it's been 10 years. Yeah, it's been 10 years, and people still talk about that. And I had people write me the next day, like you did, in sharing my journey and my story and my struggle, I had so many people write me and they go, "Hey, you're not alone," and you've helped me understand that I'm not alone either, and that there's people in the world that are suffering through tragedies like you're suffering through and I've suffered through. There are people that wrote me, they're like, "You made me cry. I never realized I hadn't gotten closure with my father or my mother or my grandparent or a child that I'd lost to death. I realized I never gotten closure with my animals passing away." And it really helped so many people. And I didn't have that foresight of thought, when I was making that post like you did. I don't know if you had the same lack of foresight of thought or if you're just sharing, but I did, and I was like, this is selfish. Like, everyone's just gonna go, "Oh, boo-hoo, Chris. Oh, everyone's dog dies. What are you doing?" But no, the impact it had was just massive, and that's why we share stories in the Chris Voss Show. That's why we say stories are the fabric of life. Is our stories, we share them with other people, and they learn that they're not alone. We're not alone. There are other people that have our problems, and there are also other people that have blueprints to solve their problems. And that's probably one of the greatest things ever, on top of human nature's, eternal hope. I mean, that seems to be the thing that keeps the species alive, is our ability to hope and dream.
I believe that. And, for me, yes, it was a little selfish, but it was also kind of like my apology tour, because I felt bad that I didn't really let on to everybody that I was so depressed.
Yeah.
I have a huge social media following. There's always the class clown, always somebody, I would do anything for anybody. And I just kind of wanted to come clean. And it made me feel better. But the other thing that made me feel better too was just laughing. Hindsight is 2020. I can go back and laugh at some of the shit that happened during that last quarter. Not many moments I'm super proud of, but when you're in a depressive state, you're not really thinking. But that's all kind of started with my co-host, who at the time was my manager. And I use that term so super loosely because I retired in April. But we had been friends for, like 7 years. And so every day before work, we'd call each other and just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh about super irreverent stuff, things that you probably should never talk about. I'm probably going to be driving the bus to hell, but I'm okay with that. And so, like, during one of those conversations, she's like, "Hey, we should do a podcast." And I'm like, "Hey, yeah, let's do a podcast." So that was on January 14th. We dropped our first episode on February 14th in honor of my mom. I had buried my mom in 1997 on Valentine's Day and wanted to change the trajectory of the day. And we thought, "Oh, yeah, we'll get like 3 episodes in. Nobody's going to listen to us." Boy, were we full.
There you go. And so now you guys do a podcast. Give us the title of the podcast again.
So the title of the podcast is Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. And when you spell shit, you have to use the exclamation point because the Apple and Spotify police don't let you use the real word. We are now finishing up season 10. We are listened to in over 60 countries, and truly the mission behind our podcast is to normalize how we talk about mental health.
Wow. There you go. And so you guys have, it looks like on iTunes, about 113 episodes so far that are published?
Yep.
There you go. And so you launched this podcast to help other people share your story and help other people with their story. And it's been a pretty good success. You got about 400,000 downloads so far?
Well, we have switched platforms.
Okay.
So, the numbers don't carry over. We're a little over 1.5 million downloads now.
Wow. There you go. Good for you guys. 1.5 million. That's awesome.
It's scary.
Isn't it? Well, you've tapped into a vein and you found your voice. You found your passion, evidently, because you like sharing on the show. And so what goes on each episode? What do you talk about?
So for each episode, we have guests from all walks of life. we let our guests come in and just, tell us their story. And then Dirty Skittles and I, we ask questions, we let them sell their wares. And it's just a great organic conversation. We never script our show, ever. And we just let the guests run with what their stories are. So like one of our favorite guests was Bookie. She's a good friend of mine. She had terminal breast cancer. And we got to interview her. She died about a month after the episode released, but there were lessons in that episode that I still carry with me today.
Wow.
One of our most listened episodes, Dirty Skittles' dad came on twice. He's a licensed therapist. We always laugh a little bit in the episode, and we talk about some really dark stuff.
Wow. But
Levitivity is really good for your heart. But, we laugh. Some of our guests cry. We dig deep, and we always give like tips and resources that other people can use, because when our guests share their stories, we unlock somebody else's prison.
Yeah.
And we tell the stories that a lot of other podcasts don't. And we've had our guests tell us it's kind of like sitting around the fire, shooting the shit with friends.
Well, that's a good place to be. People need more friends and social stuff too. A lot of people are isolated nowadays. COVID really impacted that and compounded it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that idea didn't come up during COVID, but neither did the mental health breakdown and all the other assorted crap that came with that. But am I mad that all of that happened? I'm not, because my life has it's a complete change. I completely reinvented myself. I'm healthier. I'm happier now than I have ever been in 20 years.
Wow.
And I get to be me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important. Finding your own personal voice, finding your personal passion, the thing that you love the most. My podcast is about the only thing I've ever loved out of any of the companies I've owned in all the years I have. People think that's funny. They're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I did. I mean, I was an investor in a lot of companies, and in my businesses and what I built and stuff, but I wasn't really ever in love with any of it. Like, I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't, I was kind of like, oh, let's get some money out of this stupid thing. And that was about it. And so I just finally found something I love with my podcast. I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. Some of the things you guys talk about on the podcast, I'll just kind of spin out some of the different things here. On March 25th, you guys had a show about anxiety, self-trust, and joy, mental health, deep dive with Alyssa, empowering your mind, anxiety, growth, finding your path, how Hadley found her joy after letting go of social drinking. Lots of heartfelt stories. The Aces of Grief, Understanding Trauma and Healing with Honey Badger, Part 1. These different things that many people are going through. I mean, we all have emotions, we all have issues, and life is really kind of strange right now with all this sort of weird stuff happening, starting with COVID and everything else, I guess.
You think?
Yeah. I feel too. I think, yeah. It's kind of a weird time in 2025. Let's put it that way. Go ahead.
It is. And, I was just going to say, like, since January 20th, our listenership has gone up, like, I don't know, 40%.
Really? Wow.
Like, we have crazy numbers that I can't explain, and now I just leave it alone. Kind of like I don't look at my news feeds anymore because it gives me anxiety.
Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, you gotta, ride it. Just enjoy it, man. Just enjoy it. There's so many podcasts that fail, that never go anywhere, that are what I call zombie podcasts. They have 5 episodes. What is the old rule? 80% of podcasts die by episode 5 or 7, I think it is. And then of the 20% that survive, 80% will die by episode 25. Most people never make it out of the gate in podcasting. And really, they're not really that into it, and they're really not that good at it, and they should go back to McDonald's or find work or something. I'm kidding, people. I'm not, one of the two. So anyway, I mean, it's a business where everybody thinks it's really easy to get into. Oh, I just get a mic and talk, and how much money do I make doing this? And you're like, yeah. So it's a thing where you can talk about stuff. You guys got all those episodes now up so far. What else about the podcast maybe haven't we teased out or talked about that you think is important?
Well, what's kind of crazy for both of us is that we are now booked, like physically booked with guests until March of 2026.
Holy crap. Wow. And how often do you do your show?
We record 5 to 6 episodes, one Saturday a month.
One Saturday a month. So you're publishing those 5 to 6 during that month?
So when we record, we're about 6 weeks out from when you record.
Mm-hmm.
And we have just been getting these really incredible, phenomenal guests. Like my email, I can't even keep up. I will tell you, email is evil and not the best way to manage a podcast, okay?
Yeah, we see a lot of that too, where I think we get hundreds of applications a month to the show. And it's like, well, we can't take everybody, folks. I mean, I've had people say, why don't you have all those people on your show? And it's like, how much time during the day do you think I have?
Yeah.
And it's hard to do multiple shows, even a day. We do 2 to 3 a day, a weekday. I should mention. We do take the weekends off, but it's hard. People don't realize how hard it is to do a show and produce it live, especially, or to be funny and interesting and improv it.
And we, our goal really is at the end of each episode that, our listeners have gotten something out of that. And I just got a note from one of our listeners the other day that said how helpful our podcast has been.
Nice.
They're trying to get back into the workforce, and they're scared. And they found that our episodes have been very relatable and easy to listen to, and it made me cry, kind of made me smile. And for 30 Skittles a night, when we record, it's like free therapy for us.
Wow, there you go. Free therapy.
Free therapy.
Wait, is that why I do this podcast? Is for my own therapy?
Yeah.
I think we just discovered something about Chris Voss, the Chris Voss Show.
It's super healing. Like, we don't realize it when we're talking about it, but we'll get off after the day, and some of our stuff is like emotionally draining.
Yeah.
So I always remember to like take care of myself after each episode, after each recording.
Mm-hmm.
But our guests have now become part of our family, and they're just fun, and we learn stuff, and we're like best of friends now. And it's just, it's funny. My wife tells me all the time, she's like, I've never seen you work so hard on something you don't get paid for.
Yeah.
But it was never been about the money. It's been about our mission.
Yeah.
And the world's a scary place right now.
Yeah.
And I think that, people need to know that they're not alone, and that, resources like 988 are out there and available. And people need to take care of their own mental health, because we have been on a ride.
Yeah, and we're still on the ride, evidently, according to yesterday. We just announced tariffs on islands that just have penguins on them. So
fantastic.
And God knows they're not exporting anything other than stupidity, evidently. But that's that. But Federal Reserves and economies, and who needs them really when it comes down to it. Anyway, it's kind of interesting right now, 2025, and we just got over bird flu and egg prices and COVID, and the hits just keep on coming. But hope springs eternal, and like you said, the other thing is knowing we're not alone, knowing there's other people in the struggle with us. Like I said, when I wrote that post about how I felt about losing my dog, and it was really shocked, because it came like it was over in 30 minutes, and we were sitting there happily as a family, and then within 30 minutes it was all taken away, and that's how life can go sometimes. But knowing that there's other people that have experienced that, hope springs eternal. That's the great thing about human nature. But knowing we're not alone, knowing there's other people we can help each other. There's a lifeboat. You don't have to swim alone in the water if the ship feels like it's sinking. There's lifeboats, and there's people that can help, and there's people that will lift. I remember during COVID, one of the reasons we changed the show from kind of being a little bit selfish of a show. We talk about Silicon Valley and tech stuff and product reviews and things like that. But when COVID happened, people could be gone in an instant. You couldn't even hold their hand in the hospital beds. You had people just dying in their homes. I mean, we had refrigerator trucks, people, and so I remember I was in a massive depression. We were losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in guaranteed income that we built on our product base every year, doing events and touring and interviewing CEOs. And I saw a post from a friend, and he says, "Here's what you do right now. You do one of two things. You be a lifter or you find a lifter." And, it sounds like, January 20 is being a big hit for you in bringing people to, needing to hear other people's stories, needing to maybe flesh their story out with other people that might have similar, and find other people that need lifting too. That's what you're doing now. You're being the lifter. And I remember I said, I don't want to find a lifter. I'm not a good follower, and I'm a person who likes helping other people. So I'm going to be a lifter. And so either be a lifter or find a lifter in these moments of time that, maybe we all find that we need some issues resolved. So I'm glad you're doing that part. Give me your thoughts on what I just passed forward to you, and then let's delve into some of the stuff you're doing at the other company you launched for, I think, consulting and stuff.
Like you said, that we are lifters. I think we kind of have a responsibility for that right now, of bringing a smile or bringing some resources to people where resources are being turned off, and giving people the ability to just feel, right? Whether it's laughing or crying or finding their joy, and in whatever, however they find their joy. That's my big thing right now, is like, find some joy. Like, the world may be crumbling, but like, you can still look outside and see a beautiful flower or hear a child laugh. Those are the things that are going to make your heart maybe skip a beat and make you think that, oh, you know what, like, life is going to be okay. It's just, we're on a really bumpy road right now. And just making people feel okay.
Yeah, it's really important, and making people feel secure in what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. It can just make all the difference in the world, and help people with what they're going through and all that good stuff. So as we go out, give people a final pitch out to onboard with some of the different things you're doing, some of the different things you're offering, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. We are still taking guests on the podcast. So if you are interested in being a guest, you can go out to our website and go to the contact form, reach out to me. We may not be able to get you on until sometime in 2026, but I do pre-interviews with every single guest just to make sure they're a good fit for the show. I am in the process of writing a book. I was almost done, and then I quit my job. And decided to include everything that's happening now into the last chapter of that book. I do want everyone to see me as a story of hope. I worked really, really hard for the last two and a half years to get here, and then I just opened my new business, and I'm in it now like 2 months, and I have a client and made some money. It was super exciting the other day. I got my first paycheck with my company name on it, and I took a picture of it because it made me happy.
Yeah.
But, I'm 61 and a half, and decided I didn't want to do corporate America anymore. And I knew I could go out and do things better myself.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy in doing it. I'm trying to learn how to, find new customers, and also, just share my knowledge, my 45 years of working and living experience around mental health and being in business and in the corporate environment, and really getting like corporate leaders to think about employees' mental health as they're going through changes and things within their companies. Because right now, people aren't just thinking about the stress at work; they're thinking about the stressors on the outside too.
Yep, definitely. And we need as much help as we can get. Remember, folks, right now, find a lifter or be a lifter. Any day above ground is a good day when it comes down to it. There's so many beautiful things about life, about ourselves. We just have to find the beauty in that. Yesterday I spent time with my puppy, playing with my puppy, and just really thinking how blessed I am. Gratitude is a big point in a lot of this. Finding gratitude, being grateful for what you have. So what? You don't have everything. No one does. I mean, there's people that make millions per year and are still the most unhappiest people in the world. And I've seen what that's like in being successful, and being depressed. No matter how successful you are, you're just like, I just can't do this. And so everyone struggles. Everyone goes through this. Everyone seems to be sometimes given things that they find insurmountable, even though some of us may look at them and be like, really, that's bugging you? But when you're in the depths and throes of that voice in your head that, decides it wants to beat you up and have its way with you, that can be just an incredible challenge and hard for people. So as we go out, give people your final thoughts and pitch out to subscribe to your podcast, get to know you better, reach out, et cetera, et cetera. If there's a newsletter to the podcast, all that.
Yeah, so we do have a newsletter at the bottom of the show notes in either Spotify or on Apple. You can find the link to our newsletter if you want to sign up for it. We go out every Tuesday morning at 3 a.m. We have an incredible season 11 coming up. Super excited about that. And if we say something or do something that really triggers you or would like to get more information, please reach out to us at goesononourheads@gmail.com. I respond to every single email, even though I think email is evil, and because we get too much of it.
Well, you might want to hire a VA for that, maybe. I don't know.
That's the next step.
Yeah, find somebody to take that off your hands, because it sounds like you really hate it. And
I really hate it.
It's a great tool. So I don't know why I'm trying to sell you email, but By the way, you can join my affiliate service, gmail.com. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
But we are super excited to be where we are. It's been a work of passion, and I, with my own company, it's passion. It's something I do. I work because I want to, not because I have to. And if anybody out there is interested in my services, if you go to my website, shosersolutions.com, you can have a 30-minute, free consultation with me, and we'll see if there's something I can do to help you in your business.
There you go. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming by and sharing your story. And thanks for starting the podcast and helping so many people. It sounds like it's having an incredible impact. And, you're saving lives. I mean, it's interesting. We've had so many authors on the show and people have told me themselves. I mean, there was decades ago. How old am I? Like social media has only been around since 2009, Chris. But I remember on my social media Twitter feed, I just pumped some feel good quotes into it into our automator, and 2 people wrote me over those 10 years saying that I'd saved their life that day, and whatever I'd been pumping with no intention of saving anyone's life, just pumping feel good quotes. They told me that they were planning on committing suicide that day, and something in the quotes that I quoted them resonated and saved their lives. So sometimes we just never know the impact we have on other people. Sometimes you'll hear stories. Sometimes people come up to me and tell me how much an episode impacted them, and I'm like, wow, really? That's amazing. So I think it's great what we're doing and we're sharing, and sometimes we just need as many voices as we can in the space to help lift. as it were. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. And just as one parting word, check out your extroverted friends. We are really, really, really good at masking our depression.
You know, somebody told me when we were 20, when I was around 20, they said, you know, a lot of people who are comedians and clowns, they're masking issues, they're hiding issues, they're coping with it, really. And but sometimes that's what sometimes you're in so much depression, that's what we need. We find the laughter and we find the joy of it, but sometimes we're running from our own demons. And that can be a challenge. You know, we saw that with Robin Williams. We saw that with other comedians that have killed themselves or died of overdoses because they were coping or medicating their issues with drugs or alcohol, etc. And so you bring forward a good point. You know, just because someone is the most funnest, happiest person doesn't sometimes mean that that's going on inside them. Sometimes they're running from their own demons. So there you go.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, and so did I, Gretchen. Thank you as well. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.